Masto of Nevada is recognized.
Thank you. And Administrator Fernandez, thank you for being here as well. Let me follow up on what my friend and colleague, Senator Menendez, was talking about when it comes to this nexus between transit and housing. Just recently, I sent a letter to DOT and FTA about implementing my Better Plan Act, which passed in the infrastructure bill. And what the legislation really does, it requires more consideration of housing in transportation planning and establishes a voluntary housing coordination process that MPOs and local governments can undertake to align transportation investments with increased housing supply. I guess my first question to you is, can you confirm that the department is working on a response to my letter and the implementation of my legislation within the bipartisan infrastructure package?
Yes, we are, Senator Cortez Masto. As a matter of fact, we're currently working with our partners at the U.S. Department of Transportation to implement the housing coordination plan provision. It was also that's going to help metropolitan planning organizations put more emphasis on regional goals for integrating housing and specifically affordable housing transportation into their economic plans. We also have a working group with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, all geared towards our Thriving Communities effort. And that interagency group is going to be focusing primarily on the housing, that intersection of housing and transportation to help advance the needs of what we have already deemed is one of the highest cost to a household. Transportation is followed by housing. And if we can keep affordable transportation and affordable housing in the same corridors, I think that would help save a lot of dollars in taxpayers' wallets.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also want to highlight the aspects of the bipartisan infrastructure bill that do truly involve climate change, and it really is a climate bill. And we provided over $5.5 billion in emission reduction transit investments for buses in this country. For which I can say is vital given the environmental concerns we're tackling in Nevada, from wildfires to severe drought. And that's not even counting the billions for cleaner school buses and the change I made or was able to get to provide EV charging eligibility through transit formula dollars. I have seen firsthand the amazing impact that this money has made in my state. Was just recently in Reno, Washoe County, with the Regional Transportation Commission. They have a fleet of over 70 buses. We waved goodbye to the last diesel fuel bus there, and what they have implemented, we were celebrating, was the complete retirement of their dirtier buses. And they are 13 years ahead of schedule. And that's a benefit, not just to that community, but to the many families that live and breathe the air within that community as well. And so as you're implementing the bipartisan infrastructure law, what do you see as the future prospects of sufficient and expanding domestic manufacturing of cleaner transportation technology, such as electric buses and the batteries powering them?
Yeah. Senator, there has been some challenges with the implementation and then the availability. But what we're seeing is that manufacturing has stepped up. There's going to be an increase in the number of manufacturers that are going to be helping deliver electric vehicles, electric charging stations, in addition to building up on that supply chain. We have a long-term goal, and that long-term goal is to transition all buses, all public transportation buses, to a cleaner, greener technology. And the funding that was made available through the bipartisan infrastructure law, specifically for the bus and low and no emissions, in addition to the formula dollars available to transit agencies, is going to help us get there. So we are highly encouraged. Yes, there's been some supply chain challenges, but we see those as short term. But in the long term, the plan is that transit agencies, like the ones you have referenced, that have really stepped up and develop plans. And we're also helping those who have not developed a plan to create a transition plan for their fleets.
Thank you. And then finally, talk a little bit about workforce measures, because you started that conversation, or you touched on it in your comments. Are we building the necessary pipeline we need around workforce and bringing the workforce along with us as part of this bipartisan infrastructure package to create these opportunities in this new innovation economy that we're seeing.
Yeah, we're certainly targeting that because we recognize that really the workforce is the one that's going to make the significant difference in not only delivering service, but maintaining. And then we also have the manufacturing side of our industry that needs to be able to generate the assets that are used for ferries, trolleys, buses, and trains. The Federal Transit Administration last year I created the Transit Workforce Center in recognition that the transit industry is experiencing what is known as the silver tsunami, and we have such a large percentage of transit workers that could retire in the next 5 years. Recognizing that we still need to continue providing service and that service is now going to take us into communities where we're going to be closing transit deserts and we're going to be trying to access and provide a higher quality service. The Transit Workforce Center will be focusing on the recruitment, training, and retention in addition to upskilling with the transition from combustion emissions engines to the electric, and also on apprenticeships, creating apprenticeship programs and working very closely, identifying opportunities with local community colleges and Job Corps and others to start building that pipeline, because we have to build it and we have to build it quick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Smith.